First Nations investigators say children at a former Alberta residential school died after contracting a deadly disease. Researchers say it's further evidence of the lack of care for Indigenous children. Alison MacKinnon has more and a warning. Some of the details are disturbing.
The land where the Blue Quills Residential School once stood is now empty, but investigators say what lays just below the surface nearby tells a horrific story.
The mass grave was filled with children-sized skeletons wrapped in white cloth. And we now don't know that the white cloth that they were wrapped in were bed sheets from the residential school.
Researchers say many children at the Sacred Heart Residential School, later moved and renamed Blue Quills, died suddenly.
They were healthy. There was no health concerns with them. Suddenly, a month later, they were infected with tuberculosis.
Records show students drank milk from on-site cattle several times per day. The same documents suggest there was no pasteurization equipment and cattle were not regularly tested for TB.
These children died in the hundreds from drinking unpasteurized raw cow's milk.
Experts say, if true, the unsafe practice reveals a glaring hole in the school's health policies.
Why weren't the cows being tested for tuberculosis?
We had veterinary reconnaissance for bovine tuberculosis probably by 1910. The thing is, residential schools weren't part of the commercial dairy economy. They didn't have the same kind of veterinary reconnaissance keeping an eye on the health of their cattle.
Researcher James Deshuck says this shows a huge double standard.
So what that means is unpasteurized milk was provided to those kids probably for decades after non-Indigenous kids were protected by pasteurization.
The society is encouraging First Nations looking into unmarked graves and mass deaths at other residential school sites to check for records on the milk students drank.
Most residential schools had a school farm. They had cattle, and that cattle was purchased by the Department of Indian Affairs.
The investigators now need to find a coroner to sign off on excavating at the Blue Quills school site. Alison MacKinnon, CTV News, Edmonton.